Alright guys, Darren from FBA Elite and welcome back to another video. So in this week's video, we're going to be looking at importing from China to the UK and showing you guys how to calculate customs duty and VAT so that you can know your landed costs. So this is one of the areas that I see a lot of new sellers struggle with. People tend to struggle with calculating their profit margins in advance. And a lot of the reason behind that is because they struggle to actually know their landed costs. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I go about calculating my landed cost, and hopefully you guys can use it to calculate your correct profit margins before you commit to any particular product. Now, before we start, there are a few things we need to know before we can make these calculations. Up first, we need to know the cost of goods. So that should be pretty straightforward. Your supplier can give you this. So it might be $5 per unit, $7 per unit, $10 per unit, depending on what you're selling. So it's a very simple thing to get. We also need to know your freight and insurance costs. So if your supplier is providing the shipping, then ask them what they're going to be charging you for freight. If you're using a freight forwarder, you can ask them instead. The next thing we need to do is to find out your customs commodity code. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment, including a direct email you can use if you cannot find your commodity code on the website that I'm going to show you in a moment. And the reason we need to know the customs commodity code is to calculate your customs duty and VAT. So depending on what product you're importing, the customs duty percentage and the VAT percentage will vary. So generally the VAT percentage will be 20%. There are some products where it might be 5% or 0%, but the customs duty percentage varies a lot more. So we need to know this in advance so we can work out the relevant costs. We also need to know the HMRC Exchange Rate for the month that you're importing those products, as that will impact your overall calculations. Just a quick note here, if you're using a supplier that is providing DDP shipping, which is delivery duty paid shipping, then what they're giving you is an all-included one-off cost that covers the cost of the goods, the shipping, hopefully insurance as well. If not, make sure they're insurance the product, and they'll cover the customs duty and VAT as well. So if they're giving you a DDP unit cost, you don't need to worry about all of this and you can skip the video. But hopefully you'll stick around either way, just in case you don't use DDP going forward. So what I'm going to do now is just take you over to both of these websites and show you the information you need, and then we'll come back and we'll do an example calculation. So here we are on the official gov.uk website, and there are a few ways you can go about this. You can either use a search, which I'm going to show you in a moment. You can scroll down and go through these sections manually if you can recognize the type of product you are. It is mainly led by material first and then use second. So take a look through these and see if you can work your way down. So if not, I'll show you the email address in a moment that you can use to contact these guys to get their own recommendation. But let's just say that we have an idea in mind of the product we want to sell. If you know the commodity code, you can just put it in here. If you don't know the commodity code, you can actually contact your supplier, and quite often they may have a commodity code you can use and you can pop that in instead. If you don't know the commodity code, and like I said, you can either click through manually, you can use the email address I'm going to give you in a moment, or you can type the name of the product here. Now, being honest, the actual search isn't that great. So for something really common like an umbrella, it should return results. But a lot of your typical FBA products, you may not find with a simple search, so you're going to have to go through manually or use the email address that I'm going to give you in a moment. But let's, in this example, just go for maybe a standard umbrella. That's all we're looking for. So we're going to click on this and see what pops up. So you can see here, the first thing it says, there's only one result. There's another term here, but it said that's not really relevant. Wooden articles of, we're not going that way. So umbrellas, sun umbrellas, walking sticks. Okay, that sounds accurate so far. We then have umbrellas and sun umbrellas. Yep, that sounds good. Not parts and trimmings. So we're going to click on this link. And then if we scroll down a bit further, there should be an expand option. So if we click open all headings, we can then choose the most relevant one. So let's say we've got a telescopic shaft umbrella that's going to pop out on its own, and it's with a cover of a woven textile materials or other. So the actual commodity codes do vary slightly, but actually the VAT percentages and the third country duty, which is the customs duty percent you're paying, is the same for all of these. So it doesn't make a huge difference which one you use of these, providing it is reasonably accurate. So this is how you go about finding the commodity code for your product. And once you know this third country duty, so the 4% or whatever it will be for that particular product, and your VAT rate, you can then use that to do the calculations, which I'm going to go back to in a moment and show you how to do to work out your landed cost so you can actually do your profit calculator correctly. Now, if you cannot find your product or you're not overly confident about this section that you found, what you can do is actually contact them directly. So if you go to the FBAelite.com website, you can sign up, it's completely free. Go to the resources section, and on here we have a template. You can actually use this without even logging onto the website if you want. You can just copy it directly from this video. But on here, we have a customs duty classification code email template. And within this page, we have the email address. So you can email classification.inquiries@hmrc.gsa.gov.uk. And I've put an example email in here you can use as well. And the last time I used it, I think they replied within 1 to 2 days with a recommendation of the commodity code to use. So it's really good fallback to have if you're unable to find the classification code, either going through the search or the manual lookup. Now, the other thing I mentioned on the first slide of the presentation was the HMRC Exchange Rate. So this changes every month. So if you go to the link that I'm showing you here, again, this will be in the description. If you scroll down and look for the monthly rates, so we're in 2021 at the moment. So we're going to click here and then we're going to click View Online. So don't bother downloading these, just choose View Online. So despite the fact we are ordering from China, we're importing in USD. So we need to scroll all the way down until we get to the US dollars. So where are we? USA here. So it's 1.4146. So that is the exchange rate we need to use for the calculation. Like I say, this changes every month. So if you want to be as accurate as possible, make sure you check this out before doing your landed cost calculations. So what I'm going to do now is take you back to the presentation and show you how to use those percentages and that exchange rate in a real world calculation. So here we are back in the presentation, and I'm going to show you the method that I use to calculate my landed cost. So the first thing you need to know is the cost of goods. So this is very straightforward. Like I said at the start, just ask your supplier what your overall cost is. So let's say I'm going to be buying £5,000 worth of goods from my supplier in China. So that are my cost of goods. I then need to divide that, so in its original currency, so we're quoted in USD when we're buying from the Chinese. You need to divide that by the exchange rate that HMRC give you. So like I just said, the exchange rate was $1.41 to the pound. So I need to divide that $5,000 by 1.41, and that gives us a total of £3,534. So that's the figure we're going to use going forward into the next calculation. The next thing we need to do is to add the freight and insurance costs. So like I say, you can contact your freight forwarder and get some estimates up front, so you don't have to wait exactly to your shipping if you're just trying to get a rough idea of what things will cost. Or if you're using your supplier's freight forwarder or your supplier's shipping arrangements, ask them and they can give you the costs. So in this example, I've allocated £2,000 for freight and insurance, as shipping costs at the moment as of June 2021 are insane. But if you're watching this at some point in the future, shipping costs hopefully have come back down. So you add that £2,000 of shipping costs, which is the cost for the freight itself, and if you pay for optional insurance, that is included as well. So add that £2,000 onto the £3,534 cost of goods to give you a new total of £5,534. We then need to apply the customs duty rate. So in the example of the umbrella, that would have been 4%. In this example, I've got 5%. So there are two ways you can do this. You can either times it by 1.05, which will straight away just add 5% to the total, or if you want to split it out and know the customs separately, just multiply that total by 0.05 instead. So it's either £276 of customs duty, or your overall cost now is £5,811, and that includes your cost of goods, the freight and insurance, and your customs duty. The next thing we need to do is to apply VAT to this new total. So there are two ways you can do this. You can either have an all-inclusive figure adding the VAT on straight away, just like we did with the customs duty, or you can split it out separately. So in this example, the VAT rate is 20%, just like the customs commodity code I just showed you. So if we take the 5,811 times that by 1.2, that will add 20% to the total, bringing us to 6,973. Or if you want to know what the VAT is on its own, just times that total by 0.2, and that'll be 1,162. So once you've got this brand new figure, that is effectively your overall landed cost. So divide that by the number of units that you're going to be buying, and that will give you the individual unit landed cost. So we take that 6,973. Let's say in this example, we're buying 500 units. So our landed cost for those 500 units per unit is £13.95. So that's the cost of goods with the freight and insurance, the customs duty and the VAT. So now when I go to my profit calculator, I feel very confident I'm going to get a good example of what I'd expect if things go as I'd like them to go. Now, before I wrap up this video, there is a bonus tip I want to give you, as this will apply to some sellers and will really, really help. It's something I've been using and it's really, really helpful from a cash flow perspective. So what I want you to do if you're using a freight forwarder is to tell them that you want to use the postponed VAT accounting scheme, or the PVA scheme. You're also going to need to tell your accountant this as well. So what this allows you to do is delay paying the VAT on imports and just declare it on your next VAT return instead. So what had happened in the past is when you import goods as a VAT registered seller, you'd pay that VAT up, so you'd lose that from your cash flow, but then you could claim it back on your next VAT return. Instead, with the PVA scheme, you can delay paying it at the point of import. Instead, simply just declare it on your next VAT return. So you never actually pay out that VAT and claim it back. It just gets declared on the VAT return. So it can really, really help with cash flow. So like I say, this is available to VAT registered businesses only. So if you're a new seller, you probably won't be VAT registered just yet, but it's certainly something to be aware of for when you hit that threshold, as it will help you with cash flow at that time. There's no specific sign up required, so you don't need to tell the HMRC you intend to do this. You simply just declare it on your next VAT return. And that's why you need to tell your accountant that's what you plan to do. And also you need to tell your freight forwarder so they don't try and pay the VAT on your behalf and then invoice you for it. You do need an EORI number, but if you're using a freight forwarder, you're going to be needing one of those anyway. There's some additional resources and discounts there. So you've got the FBA Elite course if you want more help starting up your Amazon FBA business. We've got the Helium 10 discounts. We've got links to the FBA Elite forums, which are completely free, and that's where you can get access to the classification code email I just showed you, along with the FBA Elite profit calculators in that same section. And there's a link there to link my books as well. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It makes a big, big difference. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to talk to me and over 3,500 other FBA sellers, sign up at the FBA Elite forums. And I'll see you guys on the forums.